All right. So if you watched the main video or you just watched the sort of red animation, this is the green looking one. This one is going to take a little longer. There's a lot more moving parts, a lot more bouncing around different places. And this one, we're actually using video. Did y'all hear that? That was my cat. We're using multiple videos and pacing them around. The biggest takeaway from this one, I think, is having more control within the nodes of these videos and these clips and stuff. I'm not going to dwell on the creation of those flat graphic elements, mostly because this is a Blender Patreon. It's not an Adobe After Effects or Premiere Patreon. I will touch on them for a second for those of you who do have it, but 95% of this will be all in Blender, and attached to this video, just like the last tutorial, is those finished assets for you to use so you don't have to make them. But if you do want to make them, refer to the first tutorial and you can animate them and have some fun there. The more you know about Blender, the better these videos are. Now we can dive into it. We're here in After Effects, and this is like the big wall of text that I animated. And you can actually sorry, I cannot speak. I just thought of, like, in Blender, you can just get a bunch of text and then use a noise texture with transparency, and you can noise texture them in. So you can still do something with this similar effect and fade them in. And honestly, I'll do that really quick. Just to show you, because I mean, this is a really cool effect, but this is with a free, you can pay for some stuff, but mostly free plugin called Animation Composer. Sorry, my brain, usually when I start videos, I'm like, my brain's going fast and need to slow down. So we'll go to the text presets and then the transitions, and then I animate characters, and you have all of these. Scale is a cool one. And so you can just apply this. So if, like, I go into here and I go ahead and remove all presets. So now we just have this, and I want to point out one very important thing. If you want to have so in this particular video, some videos are playing later in the animation. So I had to be able to tell it, don't start playing until a certain point. In order to do that, whatever video you have, make sure the first frame is oh my God, make sure the first frame is completely blank, and that gives you control. So that's a very important thing to know. With these videos, if you're making it for this and you want to delay the start time within Blender, and that'll make more sense later. I just bumped the mic. Make sure that first frame is blank so that it can hold it there. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the way this plugin works, it's very cool. So I'll just go ahead and we'll use this one. And then I'll press play. And it does something like that. And it's really cool. If you don't have After Effects, but you want to have a similar kind of vibe where there's this huge wall of text, I'll present a free Blender alternative with textures. So what we'll do is we'll get our camera, and I'm going to have it 1920 by 1080. So I'll just move it out, and then let's get some text. Oh, by the way, I'm sure some of you probably already read it. This is lyrics from Fred Again, Adore You by Fred Again. That's where I got my stuff. Maybe he'll sue me. I'm kidding. So you can just type in a bunch of text. And then we'll just use this for example. All right, so I'll scale this down. All right, cool. And then we'll just return. Oops. All right, so we have this for your wall of text. And then in the shading, what you can do to animate this whole thing in to get a really cool effect is we'll give it a new material. And then we're going to get a mix shader. And then we'll get in a emission and a transparent. Here we go, transparent. Move them down. And then we'll make sure transparency is working. It is. And then what you can do, this will create the animating in effect. We'll get a color ramp, and then we'll get a noise texture. Control T. Factor, come on now. And factor. And then you can just animate it in like that. I would bring the detail to 0. I'd bring my scale pretty high. And then now they'll animate in. And you can do this with several textures. And even farther into this tutorial, you will see me using other textures as well. So there's a lot of cool things. There's a lot of really cool options. So you can, that's how you can do the wall of text instead of using After Effects. And that's the game. All right. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell too much on the creation of those assets. In the folder, you're going to have the blocky ones, all the wall of text, and the square. And you can even make this in Blender using wireframes and objects and stuff. This was made in Photoshop just using the stroke. And so just very, very simple creation of this stuff. But again, I used Photoshop because it's easier and they're kind of made for that. For example, like this, I'll make 0 fill. I'll give it a white stroke, and then we'll go make something like that. And that's how this was made, where you can use this to create those. But again, because I'm not assuming you guys have Blender, I'm not going to dwell on these. So we're going to just move on, and attached is all of these assets for you to use, and you can use them. There's no copyright. I'm not going to sue you if you use it in client work. It's all cool stuff. Though probably don't use the Fred Again lyrics in client work. I don't know. All right, so now we're going to actually build the whole thing. One thing you're going to need is go to ambientcg.com and then type in rock. These are all free CC0 textures, and I believe I used this one here, so rock 035, and I downloaded the 4K PNG. This is how we're making the rocky ground. So that's what we're going to tackle first. So what I'm going to do, hit Shift A, get a plane, and then hit S10, and that's going to scale it up. I'm going to right click, subdivide, and we are going to do 100 cuts. I mean, pretty high poly. I'm going to Control A and apply that scale. So now we have this. Let's go ahead and go to the modifiers, add a displace. Click New, and right here on Local, go to UV. It's automatically unwrapped because it's flat. We're going to go ahead, click here, keep it on Image and Movie, and open up wherever you saved your texture. And we just want to pull the displacement. So now you can see it here. I'm going to right-click and shade smooth, and you can subdivide it higher, but you don't really need to. Let's head over to shading. Sorry, where are we at? Let's head over to shading. And the image textures will make up for the low poly nature of it. So we're going to get new. I'm going to hit Control T. We're going to open up rock. Get that color so it's mapping correct. We're going to go ahead, Control Shift D. Click on that number 2, and we're going to go ahead and get in the roughness. We're going to do non-color and plug that into roughness. And then pull that down, just making space for everything. We're going to get a normal map. Plug that there, and we'll plug this into color, but it's not going to work properly. We need to actually grab the normal. Cool, so now that's that, and then you can play with the strength a little bit. So now we have everything set up correctly here. What I want to do, though, is extend out this image texture. So we're going to kind of manipulate it. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the front. We're going to hit Shift A. We're going to get an empty. And then I'm going to hold down Control so it snaps right here to the edge. We're going to go back to this guy. We're going to go to the modifiers and get a mirror modifier right here. And then we're going to click Mirror Object, and then click the Y, and it's going to do that. I don't know why it darkens this. It's not noticeable in the final animation, so I'm okay with it, but I don't know. The mirror, for some reason, darkens things. If I could find out why, I would. I probably could, but we're not going to worry about it because it doesn't mess it up. And what's nice about when we mirror this is when we duplicate it down, it's going to be seamless. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit Shift D on this, hold down Control and just bring it here. And then I'm going to hit Shift D, bring it here so it's wide enough so we can't really totally see the edges. And we could mirror to the right and the left. That's not noticeable. I just wanted to make sure it was mirrored this direction. So what we're going to do now is highlight everything, hit M, new collection. We're going to call it loop. And then I'm going to hit Shift A, collection instance, click on loop, hold down Control, and make sure it just touches right there. And then I'm going to hit Alt D, bring it down. And as you notice, see how it's seamless here? You can see it seamlessly goes into the next one. That's why we did the mirror. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'm going to do it. And then I'm hitting Alt D, and I think this is probably far enough. Okay, so now we have this. Now what we need to do is create our geometry nodes system for all the random pillars. So what we're going to do is just get a plane, and then I'm going to hold down Control until the anchor point is right in the middle here, right there. So now we have that right in the middle of that empty. And so what we're going to do now is go here to geometry nodes. I'm going to collapse this window, click new. We're going to delete the group input, and we're going to get a grid. We're going to plug this here, and we're going to do a little bit of geometry nodes magic. First thing we're going to do, I'm on size, I'm going to control click and type in 20. No, does it need to be 40? Yes, okay. So this grid, and we're just going to call this geo so we can find it later. So now he'll fit here, and then we can extend him out to, so he'll need to be at 60. So 40 by 60 fills in this whole thing. And then we can go here and give it like 20 vertices. Now we can do that. Now what we're going to do is separate. We're going to do a separate geometry, and then we're going to get a random value. Random value. And we're going to go here to Boolean and plug that there. So now you can see they're coming in and coming out. We can do face instead, and that gives you a little bit more control. So now we have all of this. Now we can instance on points, which is going to be those pillars. So inst, instance on points. Let's get a cube. Getting our cubes here, plug that here. And now we have this whole grid, and we can randomly place ones like that. Or if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to instance on points, you can do a distribute points on faces, plug that there, and that will actually randomly place pillars all over. You won't be able to control if they get in the way, but if you don't care about that control, this is also a way to do it. Or you can just distribute points on faces. So those are the two ways to get randomness. I have not done it before, so I'm going to stick with distribute points on faces for this one. The original project file it doesn't have that. What we're going to do now, I'm going to hit M and then click on loop, and that's going to instance it to all the other ones. Now we're going to play with random scale. So we need to we're just going to pull this random value here and switch from Boolean to vector and plug this into scale. And so now, like that. So now we have randomness. Now it's time to get our camera working properly. So I'm going to hit the tilde key and click front, get a camera. I'm going to hold down control and snap him, and I'll just bring him up a little bit. And then let's go ahead and loop him. So the reason we did see these instances, that's to keep things loopable. I'm trying to remember how far I made mine. I think he's just going to go to the end of this one. So let's do that. I'm going to hit the back arrow. I'm going to give myself 120 frames. So it's not it's a 5-second animation, I guess. And then in your preferences, make sure in the animation, your default interpolation is set to linear. So now we're here. It's a lot of moving parts. Let's go ahead, click here. You can see how it says the -10. That's how you know you're in the right spot. I'm gonna go to the end. I'm gonna hold down Control and bring it to the end right there, which for me is 70. And then I think it should be fast enough. Just before we take off, I'm gonna bring my focal length pretty wide. So yeah, this is a good speed. Great. So that's the problem with the random geo thing. So we can go ahead back into geometry nodes and click the seed value until we can see straight down the middle. Where is it? Here we go. So if you click seed, so we can kind of see straight down the middle now. And then maybe 2 or 1. Then play with that seed value till you don't see any in the way. Something like this. It's pretty inconsistent on distribute points on faces, but you kind of get the idea. Okay, cool. So this configuration is going to work. Now, beveling, you'll just click on it. Let's go back to the beginning. To bevel it, we're going to add a bevel node. See if it works. Do we need to realize instances? I don't know. Let's check. I guess I didn't bevel my original one. Realize instances. No, it's still, oh, it is beveling. You can see it. Do I still need to realize instances though? I do. Okay, so once you realize instances, you can add a very, very slight bevel. And then you can set shade smooth. And now you can be happy. And then this is how it looks in Eevee. We're gonna go ahead and add a material. So Shift-A, search, set material. I think I did like a dark metallic, like a dark metal. So we'll go here, make it metallic, and then we'll select it here. If my memory serves me right. This part is completely up to your preference. But yeah, this is what we have so far. We're flying through. We're ready to go and place down all of our videos. And this is sort of like the pacing the graphics out part. I'm actually just going to stop here and make this part 1 of part 2. So yeah, now that this whole thing is set up, we're ready to introduce the videos and pace them out, add some volume, render it, and we'll be done. So I will see you in part 2.